In this episode, I am excited to bring Ian Washburn to the discussion. Ian shares a lot of valuable nuggets about leadership, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm hoping you too will. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Let's get into the show. Hello and welcome everyone for another episode here at CIO Talk with Riaz. I am Riaz Yusuf. I'm a Chief Information Officer and your host. Today, I'm excited to have with us Ian Washburn, who is the Director of Information Security and Deputy CISO at University of Notre Dame. So we are welcoming Ian today to talk about his passion, the leadership, and it's also aligned to something I'm studying about, which is leadership studies. So I am looking forward to have this conversation with you. Ian, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Could you, I know I very briefly had a high level introduced you to my audience just now, but I would really appreciate if you go ahead and introduce yourself and please add any other details that you want to add.
Thank you, Riz. Again, my name is Ian Washburn. I'm currently the Deputy CISO at the University of Notre Dame here in the state of Indiana. I've been in higher ed for about 25 years, and I think there's unique challenges in the higher ed and a passion to be brought when helping shape the young minds of tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm originally from the Hoosier State. I grew up the son of a carpenter, and my mother was, child of the moon, so was a hippie. And so my upbringing was really varied in that I spent a lot of time around traditional Christian faith, and I also spent some time around the Tibetan Buddhist faith, which I feel like has influenced my leadership style here as I am entering the second half of my career. So I've always had a passion for helping people and wanting to see others succeed. And so I think that's been a natural draw towards leadership and cybersecurity. So we're trying to help people protect things and also help people succeed at what they're doing. So 25 years in higher ed. Before Notre Dame, I was with Indiana University, where I was in their IT risk management department there. And so my other passions include being outdoors. I've got a couple of dogs. I love to camp. If it's nice enough outside, you'll probably find me outside.
Wonderful. I hope it's not too warm out there in Indiana. Here in Chicago area, it's extremely hot today, and it's going to be hot tomorrow as well.
Indeed, yeah. We have a heat advisory, so we're just cautioning folks to stay inside and stay hydrated.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you have definitely an interesting background. Son of a carpenter, having exposed to two different religious ideologies. That's all very interesting. Tell me about, so leadership, when you say leadership is your passion and you're also passionate about helping others, I can totally resonate and understand that, because as a leader, that gives you the best opportunity to help others, right? So tell me a little bit more about what prompted you to be the leader that wants to help others. Are there any stories or are there any experiences that you had that prompted you in that direction to wanting to be that helping leaders, helping others?
Not a specific instance, but I think more of the culture of my upbringing. So the idea of stepping in to help when you can, helping others, succeed, maybe learn a bit more about themselves or about I'll say the world at large, right? But really, when we talk about leadership, I think we're talking about helping people in whatever aspect that is, right? You can be a manager, but if you're not a leader, you're likely not going to see your team flourish and succeed,
That's a very good point you're bringing up. Could you, if you don't mind, could you explain or share your understanding of the difference between a manager and a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my mind, I think a manager is someone who's looking at all the parts and pieces of a problem and maybe devising a solution or looking for ways to create efficiencies or solve the problem. I think, in the way that I look at leadership is that not only are you recognizing this problem that you want to solve, but you're also understanding how the team of people that are going to solve this problem interact with each other, what motivates them, and looking for a successful outcome to that problem. So there's a little bit of an aspect there of kind of understanding the people that you're working with, taking the time to uh, really kind of feather their strengths together and then help them rely on each other where maybe they aren't so strong, right? So um, I think it's a lot like sport coaching, really, if you're looking at kind of how good leaders approach the way they take on a new project, is they're trying to build the right team. It's not the same person. You don't want a quarterback in every position on your football team, or else you're not going to succeed, right?
Right.
So yeah, I look at leadership as very much, just as much hearts and minds as it is, strategic thought and critical kind of problem solving.
Okay, wonderful. So it sounds like a manager should work on developing themselves as a leader, which is definitely a better state for leading an organization. So my question is, are there any situations where an organization could benefit with just managers and not leaders?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The concept of a project manager or a program manager, the idea around the successful outcome of those positions is to help understand the technical aspects of, as a project manager, you need to understand the different nuances of the project that you're working on and help make sure that each one of those are completed and document those as they're completed and then report on the successful outcome. Similarly, a program manager perhaps is trying to build something new that will have a process, perhaps a policy behind it for an organization in order to bring things together. I'll point to our awareness, our security awareness and training program manager that we have at the university. Her role is to help bring together the training modules, the folks that need to take them, and report on those outcomes, as compared to being a people leader, where really having to motivate folks to understand and finish a task.
Got it. Okay. But if you have people reporting to you, is it fair to say that you will be more efficient if you shift your focus being a leader versus just being a manager? Is that a fair
Yeah.
statement?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. So I know that there are several types of leadership styles, right? Do you want to talk about some of the leadership styles that you think is well suited for an organization, to serve the team, to help the team members grow, and so on and so forth?
I think certainly those play an impact to your organization when you're trying to find the right leader. And I think culture plays a part in this. So, where more tactical leader might succeed in one area, more strategy and understanding of personalities and politics might play well in another area, right? So I think that when you talk about leadership, there's a larger understanding than just the programmatics or the end goal of your organization, whatever that happens to be. And it really is around influencing culture, understanding what motivates your employees, what your customers are looking for, and how you meet in the middle. What motivates your team, and what are your customers looking for, and how do you train your team to bring that in a way that fills them with passion and motivates them to want to do a good job for your organization.
Got it. Wonderful. So the culture is important in addition to the leadership style that an individual adopts, right? So they say culture eats strategy before breakfast, right? So culture is, I think, the key component of any organization. I'm sure when you were new to Notre Dame, that's the first thing you would probably analyzed and understood, right? What is the culture of the new organization that I'm becoming part of?
Absolutely, absolutely. And from an IT perspective, I think when you talk about culture, it plays a larger part than most people might recognize, right? Your IT organization can run in many different ways. Some folks see it as a utility, right? IT is, the culture around IT is to keep the lights on, keep the data flowing, keep the apps working, and make sure that, maximum return on investment is recouped out of this, expenditure, right? Other parts of that I think really do revolve around the hearts and minds of the organization that you work for. And those are the things that lead to retention. Those are the things that lead to folks going above and beyond what their roles are to bring fresh and new ideas to the table, you know? And as an example, some CIOs may see networks, as a utility to keep the lights on. Others may see it as an area of innovation, to continue to expand and grow. And those are the kind of things that interest me when I think about leading in an IT environment. Is really what are we trying to accomplish here?
Wonderful. That makes me wonder what are some of the strategies that a leader can adopt to retain employees? Because employee retention is always a challenging job for a leader and a manager even, right? So whether it's a market is tight market or a slow market, it only matters a little bit for good employees, right? Good employees are always on demand, irrespective of the market situation. And it's very important for leaders and managers to understand how do we retain our top employees. So Ian, I'm wondering what are some of the strategies that you use and some advices that you may have for the leaders that are willing to retain their top employees.
Yeah. Riaz, I think like anything else, it's balance. I think a lot of leaders are stuck in this, not stuck, that's not true. They choose the position to be in, to where you're trying to balance maximum productivity with the lowest labor cost that you have to get the best value you can and keep your overhead as low as you can, right? But that comes at a cost, because if you have high turnover, you're spending a lot of your, recouped savings on training new employees, right? Or having to learn new systems if that be the case. I think it's a balance between productive work and creative work for employees. Now, benefits, ability to move up in an organization, competitive pay, good time off, good life work balance. Of course, those are important. Of course they are. And we're all looking for those in every job that we go to. We want to go where our talents are appreciated, or where our hard work is appreciated. But when you get down to kind of the hard deck, as my CIO likes to call it, the work that you have to do every day and you can't get away from, is that should be 80%, of an employee's time, and 20% should be spent on a combination of professional development, creative idealization of refining and improving programs and products, and giving them the opportunity to socialize with others, either in their field or in their organization, in paths which interest them or they would like to move. Right. And I think when you give your staff the opportunity to do those things, to think creatively, try to improve the process that they're currently involved in. Because how many of us haven't said, okay, we do it this way because we've always done it this way, but I think we can do it better, but never
Mhm.
actually get the opportunity to implement the better. Is
Yeah.
is even if you can't do the better, give your team the opportunity to bring better to the table.
Okay.
When we're listened to and we're heard, we feel
Mhm.
like we're bringing value to our organization.
Wonderful. That's a great advice. Basically, in essence, what you're saying is listen to your team members, what and where they want to contribute, and provide them that opportunity for them to contribute. That's the best way to keep the team members engaged. They feel happy that they are doing something they're passionate about, and you as a leader basically utilize them to the best ways, so that benefits the organization. So it's a win-win for everyone. Thanks, Ian. That's a great advice, I think. Um, a lot of individuals, or I think based on the questions I sometimes receive from my friends, from my colleagues, and so on and so forth, it makes me wonder. A lot of individuals are on the fence in regards to whether or not they want to become a manager. Right? So they're currently an individual contributor, and they like the prospect of becoming a manager, but they're not sure whether or not it's a good fit for them. So I wonder if you have any tips or advices for these individuals in regards to how can they assess themselves to evaluate whether the managerial career path is for them.
Yeah, that's a great question, Riaz. Um, I think there are different types of personalities that are looking for this next move in their career, or looking to have some control over the problem solving in their organization. I, as a young, IT employee, thought, if I was only the manager, I could fix all the problems. And I think us as leaders understand that as you get into those roles, you realize that it's not always about solving the problems in the way that you thought they would work out, right?
Mm.
The perspective that you have as an individual contributor when you think you're thinking about moving to a manager position is, I'm going to clear out the red tape and we're going to solve all these problems, right? But the reality is there's a lot of collaboration and consideration, when it comes to being a manager, and that it's not as cut and dry as you might think as an individual contributor. So my thought would be, if you're getting into management because you want to solve all the problems that your organization has and you think that your manager is just not doing a great job about it, I would urge you to seek out some perspective and make sure that your reality matches what management means, because it's also a lot of juggling of priorities while still considering the capacity of your team, right? And that can be a struggle. The other type of leader, I think, is the person who gets into leadership because they truly enjoy working together with people to solve problems. And that is a journey each and every time, right? Is that we're just going to solve a problem today because I already have the steps lined out to solve the problem. Maybe works 1 out of 10 times. And the other 9 out of 10, you really have to bring all the stakeholders to the table, do a lot of listening, do a lot of gathering information, and then be open to a solution that isn't maybe the solution that you thought. So I would say, as a leader, 9 times out of 10, we're solving problems together rather than I am just deciding how this problem will be solved. So I would say, understand what you want from being a manager, and that'll lead you down the right path.
That's very well said, Ian. Thank you. Yes, when I was an individual contributor, I had very similar misunderstanding as well in terms of what managers do. If only you had the manager responsibility, you could solve all the problems that you are seeing as an individual contributor from your level. That's not really the case. So you said it very well in terms of collaboration and communication. I think in my view, a manager or a leader's role, a lot of it is around collaboration and communication. That's what the individual contributors may or may not realize at their level. But once you become a manager, what you're managing really is the communication and the need to collaborate with others.
Yeah.
So in that regard, what are some of your suggestions in regards to effectively managing communications?
Hmm. Uh, I think it's important to, one, communicate clearly and communicate often, understand your users' motivations, your stakeholders' needs, right? But honestly, I think it's about listening, right? The management of or the undertaking of the challenge of communicating effectively and clearly comes with the ability to understand your stakeholders' needs,
Mm.
be able to communicate those with the other stakeholders. I'll use the word synthesize that data, that information, and then present it back out to the group in a way where all stakeholders feel as if their concerns have been heard. It
Mm.
may not be their solution, but their concerns have been heard. And the progress in this collaboration is clearly defined, but yet open for feedback. Right. So it's at every point, it's communicate out, wait for feedback, next step. Communicate out, wait for feedback, proceed to the next step. Right. So I think communication is about listening. Right. They say you have two ears and one mouth because you should listen twice as much as you speak. I don't know if anybody's ever said that to you before, but as a
Definitely have
leader,
heard that.
it's about listening, right?
Yeah, again, very well said. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we think communication is all about talking, talking, and talking. That's actually not the communication. Communication is mostly listening, and when it's time to talk, you basically the key thing you have to do is clarifying what you understood. Right? That's where a lot of people fail. You
Huh.
have to the best talking you can do is clarifying what you understood, making sure that you are understanding, then taking the action to fulfill what your customers are looking forward to fulfill. So the moment you listen actively and when your customers observe that itself I have noticed is a lot of times paves ways for a better collaboration and better relationship with your customers. Do you agree, Ian?
Oh, I agree, Riaz. I think you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing to your point about communication is all about listening. Is That's the key, right? When we say the word, when we hear the word communication, a lot of times we think the communication really means what we speak, what comes out of our mouth is what we think we understand to be the communication. It's actually the other way. Most of it should be listening and processing. Listening meaning active listening, not just hearing.
Hmm.
Listening, actively listening, clarifying questions here and there, and then observing and taking it in, like you said, synthesizing, right? So that's what matters the most. Thank you again for mentioning that. Um, when an individual grows from an individual contributor level to a manager, to if you take the typical IT hierarchy, it could be from individual contributor level to a supervisor, to a manager, to a director, to then a CISO or maybe CIO. When you keep growing in a path like that, what people don't realize is the level of ambiguity that you handle, it exponentially increases at every level that you grow into, right? So my question to you is, do you have any suggestions, recommendations in regards to how to navigate this ambiguity. Because anyone that wants to become a manager or a leader down the road, invariably they're going to come across this ambiguity, and it's only going to grow, right? So, what are your approaches or suggestions to navigating the ambiguity, which is
Yeah.
inevitable?
I like that you use the word navigation, and I think when we talk about that ambiguity at that level of leadership, we are thinking about an organization that's plotting a course, we'll say. And individual contributors are working fine controls, right? They are the minute changes in thrust, propulsion, drift, drag, whatever you say. And the higher your role in an organization, the wider your I'm sorry, the how do I put this? The better you are at charting the course for your organization, right? So you say, we're headed to the Indian Ocean, and we're going to get there in 3 months, and we think that it will cost us this much. Well, your individual contributors are working on making sure that the ship is in good shape, that the hatches are sealed, that the engine is maintained. And as you move up in the organization, you go from, I think my seamanship terms are off, but private first class to captain of the ship. And the captain isn't making minute decisions every day. He's making large decisions, on plotting the course and taking care of the ship and taking care of the team. So you say it's ambiguity, but it's a larger swath of influence. So when you are making those decisions that affect that many people or affect an organization at that level, you would expect that your choices would have more ambiguity because you're slowly navigating a larger ship at that level, perhaps rather than adjusting the hatches on the ship. And perhaps that's a terrible analogy,
No, I like it.
But I hope that came through as somewhat clear.
Yep. The analogy definitely helps to understand what you're trying to convey.
Yeah.
So it's good, actually.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's a great advice as well. Some of my audience in my podcast are growing leaders. They're not a CIO or CISO yet, but they are supervisors wanting to become managers, managers wanting to become directors, and so on and so forth. What is your advice to growing IT leaders? Where do you think they should focus their energy on, and what should they be doing in order for them to continue growing in their leadership career?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Moore and Associates Leadership Program, and one of their fantastic pieces of advice is to get up on the balcony. And that term means to view the organization from a 30,000-foot view, from all the parts and pieces and how they fit together and how the machine runs cog by cog, to understand that from a higher level. When you want to be a leader and you're thinking about solving problems, and we talked about that growing level of ambiguity, is that you realize the decisions that you make have more of an impact than just perhaps your team or the individual contributor for which you're managing. So I would advise growing leaders, think about strategy and think about understanding an organization holistically, so that when tasked with decision making, not only do you understand the downstream effects of what you're doing, but the upstream effects. And the other part I would suggest is good bedside manner. And I know we use that term in the medical industry, but understanding people and politics is an important part of being a leader. And every organization, hopefully, has people, and unfortunately has politics, right? So you have to understand people and be able to work with them listen to them. So I would say is that if you're thinking about being a leader, understand an organization holistically and its strategy, and then understand how to listen to the people within that organization.
Wonderful. That's the best advice that you can share with a growing IT leader.
Mhm.
Great. Earlier in the conversation, Ian, you mentioned the word servant leader. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, how do you define a servant leader, and how can one become a servant leader?
Yeah, actually, so this is the term servant leadership was coined by a leader, Robert Greenleaf. And the Robert Greenleaf Institution, their entire focus is servant leadership. So helping leaders how to understand the people that work for them, how to get the best out of their teams. A servant leader is someone who is there to watch the team, to help the team succeed, right? So more of a, not more of, but a coach as well. When you understand what motivates your staff, when you understand their strengths and perhaps their challenges, you can not only build great teams, but you can go on to build great leaders from those teams. And I think servant leadership comes from a standpoint of working from behind your team to promote them rather than out in front of your team to pull them along. Does that make sense?
I see. Sure. Yeah. So in other words, a servant leader would typically get in the field and show the ways for their followers, basically. Instead of asking the followers to do things, they sometimes get in and show the ways. Did I understand it correctly?
I think yes. Is it necessarily working side by side to do the same work that your team does? Maybe not. But is it
Sure.
understanding innately the challenges and stresses and burnout that may come from that job and making room for your team members to express that
Mm,
or to, to balance life and work in a way that works for them?
mhm,
Um, you know, I say putting together a good team is a lot like pulling off a bank heist. And we see in the movies, that there's this montage of them putting together the safe cracker and the getaway driver and the demolitions expert, right? When you're building a team, that's what
mhm,
you're looking to do is,
mhm.
is to take different people who have different needs and work differently and blend them together to pull off the perfect heist or build a great team that are going to do great work.
Wonderful. So, in terms of materializing this idea of becoming a servant leader, what are some of the techniques or things that a leader could do to implement a servant leadership? For example, it might be doing more team building activities, or it could be more making sure that you have weekly one-on-ones, whatever that could be. What are some of the tactical advices that you have to be that servant leader?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think you hit the nail on the head. Is spending time with the team to understand what motivates them. You can do that through retreats where you're spending time, doing non-work related activities that help you work together in other dynamic ways. You can spend time listening and talking to your staff about their life and what motivates them, what they find exciting, what motivates them in their career, and how you can help, help them to succeed in their career. And I am generally asking my team members on a quarterly basis, are you getting the experience and the exposure that you are looking for to grow your career to the next step? And
Mm,
so I will actively seek out opportunities for my staff, whether that's in the organization or leveraging my network and opportunities outside of the organization to plug my team in where they want to succeed. Um, there's that old adage that, if you train your staff, they may leave, but if you don't train them, they may stay, right? And so I think that we want to retain employees, but we also want them to grow. So by helping them learn what that next step in their career is and helping them towards that, I think you actually create, you you create more loyal employees who want to stay within the organization and grow within your organization.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, at that point, even if someone decides to leave, it's a great outcome too, right? So they have grown and they've probably outgrown the organization, and it's either way. I think it's a great outcome. It gives it's still a win-win situation for everyone, whether they grow internally or inside the organization. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ian. So, just last couple of questions. You appear to be someone that reads a lot of books. That's my assumption, just
Yep.
based on our conversation. So, I'm wondering what's your recommended business book for my audience?
From a cybersecurity standpoint, I just finished a book by Dr. Jessica Barker. It's called Hacked. So even if you're not in the cybersecurity industry, this is a fantastic book that goes through a lot of the modern cybersecurity threats that we face and talks about how those have been carried out in some of the biggest organizations in the United States. So a very good book for anyone who's looking to kind of understand how cyber attacks are being carried out. Maybe even give you a little bit of a heads up on how to protect yourself. So Jessica Barker did a great job there. And I think the other book that I just finished reading was by Dr. Adam Grant, and that was called Think Again. And I really enjoyed that book because it helps you to challenge your assumptions. And I think as a professional and as a leader, we sometimes get in this mindset that we're making good decisions all the time, and we're not really second guessing ourselves. And this book by Dr. Adam Grant was a fantastic reminder to challenge my own perceptions. And it's helped me problem solve, create better relationships, and take on some new things that I didn't think I had time for because I just kept telling myself, I don't have time for that. So Think Again by Dr. Adam Grant was a great one.
Wonderful. Yeah, sometimes they say a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Which is very true. If you keep saying the same thing over and over to yourself, it becomes true one day. So it could be a negative thing or it could be a positive thing. So that's a great, those are great books. I haven't read myself. So I'm making a note and I'll include it in the show notes for my audience as well.
Great, great.
Wonderful, Ian. Thank you. And the last question before I let you go, where can my audience find you if they want to connect with you?
Oh, excellent. Mostly professionally, I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You can find me at linkedin.com/iWashburn. I'm a member of several organizations therein. You can find my information, my contact details. I tend not to do too much social media. I think probably just as a care of profession. But I think so. If you're looking for me, you want to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn. That'd be the best place.
That's probably the best place. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks again, Ian. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure my audience would too. It's a great conversation, and I learned a few things about your leadership style and things that how you approach things in regards to leadership. So thank you for your time again. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, Riaz, thank you very much. I had a great time.